today I'm very excited to have with me my old mate and bandmate, Tony Reeves. Tony, I've been playing with Tony on and off maybe about 10 years, and it's great. We're doing this great record together called Caveman TV, and I've decided to look into his past to see whether he's good enough to play on the record. Only joking, Tony. And I came across a Wikipedia page, and it has got a list of stuff that you did. And then I came across a Discogs page, which has got a massive list of things that you've done, and it's brilliant, actually. So I'd like to start off the interview with, my name's JC Carroll. I've got Tony Reeves with me, and the interview is about Tony's work. And you started off as a teenager in the playing double bass.
I started off as a teenager, yes.
With the Westminster Five. Now, that was in Lewisham, was it?
Yeah, that area, yes. Yeah, South East London, anyway.
And that's where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up in New Eltham, which is about 6 miles from Lewisham, in South East London.
Brilliant. And you started playing with John Heisman at grammar school?
That's not exactly accurate, not that it really matters, but... both around the age of 14, Dave Greenslade, who lived in Eltham, and John Heisman, who also lived in a different part of Eltham, and I was about not that far away. We started playing together our sort of first faltering notes of music, of jazz, in a church hall in Eltham, called it was the Young Persons not YMCA, Young Persons something fellowship thing, which was attached to the Catholic Church in Eltham, and we used to play in the there was a what do you call it, a games room, and we used to play after the church service. I didn't go to the church service; those two did. And we used to play for the teenagers after the church service was over.
So that would be in a keyboards, bass and drums outfit?
Exactly that.
No guitar?
And the bass was, I borrowed, they allowed me to do this, I borrowed this from my school, Colf's Grammar School in Lewisham. They let me take it home at weekends, astonishingly civil of them. And... that's the bass that I used doing these little jam sessions.
Well, that's amazing. I remember when I started off playing in Surrey, we always rehearsed in church halls because there was no such thing as rehearsal studios, and you could do a deal with the local vicar, and these were quite nice little halls that were empty most of the time, and I did a lot of rehearsals and indeed shows in church halls. That was the scene, I guess.
Yeah.
So this is really early days, and then you played with the New Jazz Orchestra and you learned all your standards there. Well, tell me a bit about that.
Oh, the New Jazz Orchestra was we used to rehearse in another pub in New Cross. I can't remember the name of it now. And it was just a whole bunch of young guys, 15, 16, 17, 18, who wanted to try out playing in a big band. I can't really remember who first got it together. I suspect it might have been John Heisman. I can't remember now. And we got some really good players for quite a long time too.
Well, that's brilliant. And so then you went on to obviously be in the quality control department of Decca Records.
Oh, that was my first job, yes, yeah. I left school. My dad died when I was 13, so I had to go out and earn a living for the family. And that was my first job at the quality control department, which is not on the shop floor. It was on the second floor, in fact. And as a result of doing that, it's what it says. It says on the tin. It's the checking of the quality of every single record that the Decca group made, And in those days, it was a very big, a broad church there of the kind of things I for a job. I mean, how about this for musical training? For a job from 9 to 5, I had to listen to records by just about anybody. Old Gregorian chants, a set of 13 albums of Gregorian chants through pop singles, right the way through to excuse me, right the way through to 78 shellacs that were destined for the West African market.
Wow, that's quite amazing.
And that was my job for like 2 years.
You must kind of really love music, because to listen to it all day is kind of hard work, actually.
Yeah, but you don't have to learn a lot musically.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, you must have learned so much. And were you listening to metal works, or were you listening to acetapes, or were you listening to production?
No, these are test pressings, the famous white labels. That they just press up half a dozen to start with in a smaller, specially air-conditioned plant on the ground floor, and they were made specifically for checking out to make sure there were no faults.
Yeah, they're very collectible. Yeah, people pay a lot of money for good tests.
Yeah, well, they are the best pressings you can buy, because, as I said, they're made under very strict conditions, with like dust filters and all kinds of things that produce the absolute best very heavyweight, top-notch vinyl product.
So it didn't take long for you to be sort of promoted out of the listening room, and you became an assistant producer.
Yeah, well, this was at the Decca Record Factory in New Malden in Surrey, and after a couple of years there, I decided that what I wanted to do was to produce records, and so I got myself transferred to head office, which was then was on the Embankment, and I got I was a sort of junior assistant to Frank Lee, who ran the album department, and that was informative. There were a lot of good people there, actually, including Mike. What's his name? Mike, the blues guy, Mike Vernon. He worked there at the same time as me.
We had a lot of Mike Vernon records when we grew up, because we got into the blues when we were in our teens, and he was the guy behind a lot of the Blue Horizon records, was he not?
Yes, he was. He was Mr. Blue Horizon, which he did after when he left Decca.
Fantastic. I mean, the blues explosion, it kind of brings us nicely onto the blues explosion, because you were with one of your main guys for a while. You played with John Mayall.
Yeah, that was strange. I was I had a very sort of snobbish attitude towards bass guitar, being a double bass player, and sort of looked down on it. But I decided a friend of mine who was managing Alexis Corner, in fact, got a bass guitar from somebody in a band that owed him money, and they gave him the bass guitar in lieu of the cash, and so I bought it from him at a very for about 40 quid or something or other, and decided, well, I really need to get into this, and I'd been playing it for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks at the most, on dance band type gigs, and which included, incidentally, a band led by a trombone player called Don Usher, not Don Lasher, but Don Usher. We used to do hotels and things like that. And Barbara Thompson was in the same band.
Wow.
And yeah, but we're still kids. They're still teenagers. Anyway, yes. So I just got a hold of this bass guitar, and had done 3 or 4 gigs on it, and Mayall was changing his band, which he does with monotonous regularity. You're still a musical virgin if you haven't been sacked by John Mayall.
And you got asked to play on the Bear Wise record.
I got. I just got, as I say, just got this bass guitar, and I got a phone call from John Mayall offering me the gig, and he said, you know, it's good, it's a nice gig. I think it was 40 quid a week, and so I thought, well, you know, this was a result of John. He'd already booked John Heisman as being the drummer for the latest incarnation of the Blues Breakers, and John recommended me. He said Tony Reeves is playing bass guitar now, and so he just phoned me up and offered me the gig, and I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, and this could be really good. So I said yes.
Well, I had a quick listen to it, and I noticed it's one of the few John Mayall records with a bass solo on it.
It's a long time since I've heard it, JC. Has it got a bass solo on what number? I can't remember.
I think the actual track Bear Wise has got a bass solo, but I had a quick listen to it, and I thought, wow, this is quite a progressive album. He plays like, you know, a harpsichord and all sorts of things on it.
Yes, it pushed the boundaries from what he'd been doing before.
Yeah, no, it's great, and so I mean, it very much put you on the map, because once you've been in the Blues Breakers, you're you're an established artist, really. I mean,
yeah, you've arrived.
And how long were you with? How long did you play with them? With it?
Oh, it was as long as 4 months.
4 months. Well, still, that's enough to get in the CV, and it, you know, makes you even more of a legend than you are already. But so there we go. But I think we have to go back a bit to the really fantastic record that you made, which is you know, your kind of seminal hit, which is Sounds Orchestral, Cast Your Fate to the Wind.
Oh, okay.
I've seen some stories about that and people interviewed about it on the internet, but I'd like to hear your version of the story, because lots of people, you know, are claiming responsibility for it and saying it was their record. But I'd like to hear what you've got to say about that fantastic record, because it's a really groundbreaking record, Cast Your Fate to the Wind. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, yeah. What happened was I was working at Pi by now, Pi Records, and every week there was a small parcel of records that were sent over from the States of various things that were happening. Remember, this is before the internet and before everything else, before mobile phones. They sent over a small parcel of records which were breaking in America and had hardly been heard of over here, for us to go through. There was a representative in New York, I think, who managed this every week, and I, as the junior chap there, got to listen to some of these things, and I picked up on this single by Vince Guaraldi, which was one of the records in the package sent over from the States, and I really liked that tune, and I thought it was so far off the wall compared to what was going on, you know, in pop music at that time, that it would either be a total flop or a really big hit. And I managed to convince John Schroeder, who was working at Pi as a producer, to do it. And so, but I said, if you do it, I insist on playing double bass. Oh, well, you know, you got to promote yourself. So whether he believed in it or not, I don't know. But in any event, we did it, and it became. It got every week there was a meeting of A&R people in Louis Benjamin's office, who was a managing director, to go through the new records of that week, and it got played there, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, how nice, how tasteful." Next, and paid it no mind at all. And what happened was Radio London and then Radio Caroline, the two pirate radio stations, started playing it off their own bat because they liked it, not because any promoters or pluggers had approached them with it. They just heard it and liked it and played it, and it grew got a momentum of its own all by itself. It got more and more interest, and what happened was at Pi, any record that sold over 100 on a day, it came up on a list in front of Louis Benjamin's desk, and all of a sudden, Cast Your Fate to the Wind, suddenly appeared on this list. It was starting to sell of it all by itself as the result of what the pirate stations were doing. And so then, Louis Benjamin saying, "Well, what's this record? Everyone had forgotten all about it. Better get behind it." So they put the pluggers onto it and turned it into, a big success. It got to, I think it was number 6. And we appeared on Top of the Pops, which was done from Manchester then.
Oh, you appeared on Top of the Pops? Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows in England that you're not really a proper musician until you appear on Top of the Pops.
Okay, I'll believe you.
That's what I was told. I mean, when I had a hit, my modest hit in the 70s, and somebody said to him, "Oh, he is a proper musician now. He's been on Top of the Pops," so... So what what was the lineup on Top of the Pops? How many of you were recording on it?
Oh, well, it was just the trio, as I remember it, piano, bass and drums. The actual record had half a dozen violins on it, and which indeed was my suggestion to John Schroeder, that to take out the jazzy bit in the middle and do a written solo. This is compared to the Vince Guaraldi version, and put a light string section on top, which is what they did. And I think it was only about half a dozen strings. And but the Top of the Pops thing, as far as I can remember, it was just piano, bass, and drums.
Did you record it live or did you mime?
Good question. I think we mimed.
You always want to mime. We had this thing. We had this complicated thing. The plugger used to try and swap the tape at the BBC because they wanted you to re-record it to prove that you were musicians because of the Musicians Union, and you wanted to use the original version because that was the best version, and you'd really want your best version to go out on live, because.
Well, of course you do, yeah.
You don't want the inferior version. You want the best thing. So how many did it sell in the end, Cast Your Fate to the Wind, Tony?
I don't know how many copies it sold, but I think it was, as I say, I think it was at either number 6 or number 7 in the charts.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is for such an off-the-wall record.
That's brilliant. And so you were a kind of in-house sort of producer by then. Well, you were working in production. You weren't.
It's what made them offer me a job of a junior producer. Up to that point, I was just working totally unsuited to it, I have to say. I was working as a plugger in the plugging office. And I also worked for the what do you call it, administration type thing, and this sort of unexpected success, Louis Benjamin promoted me to a junior producer, and he put me under the wing of Tony Hatch, who's a hell of a good producer and a good writer and a good arranger and everything, and so I sort of did 3 months. 3 or 4 months, sort of shadowing him, learning how to become a producer.
What kind of records was he making at the time?
Well, the most famous, I suppose, was Downtown.
You worked with him when he made Downtown?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What
I
a
can't
fantastic
remember
record.
what her name was.
Petula Clark. What a great record.
Yeah, Petula Clark, that's it, yeah.
What a wonderful record. And obviously, I mean, Tony Hatch is like the Don. He did all the film. He did all like a theme music for lots of the Crossroads. Did he do Crossroads?
Yes, he did. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he was a fantastic composer, and you know, it was kind of an exciting time because music was really different. I mean, you obviously listened to lots of music, but in the charts you could have orchestral music, you could have comedy records, you could have instrumentals. It was much more interesting, I'd say, than it is now.
So much more varied, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You would have instrumental records. I remember listening to things like Hugo Montenegro and his orchestra would be in the charts with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then there would be a pop record, and then there would be a comedy record. I think the charts were more interesting. It was bits of everything, you know. And
yeah,
what a great training you had, and then you kind of moved on. I mean, I'm just going through this here. You became a freelance producer. And then,
yeah, well, it was the time of one of the Great Depressions of that time, and money got very tight, and you could only have like half a dozen violins if you wanted, instead of a proper string section and all that sort of thing. And so I figured that it was it was time to get out of the constraints that those kind of things put on you, and see if I could be successful as a freelance producer.
Wow, that must have been a big. I mean, were you in your early 20s then? I imagine you were.
Yeah, 23, I guess. 22, 23.
I gave up my full-time job when I was 22, 23. I've not really had one since.
No, it is time you settled down and got a proper job, JC.
There's a couple of things that I really love that you did, and one of them is the Mike Taylor Quartet Pendulum, which is a stunning record and really very rare and very expensive record. And the other one is the Davy Graham Folk Blues and Book Beyond, and this all happened about that time. I get
it is all around that time. Yeah.
I mean, can you tell us a little bit about Davy Graham to start off with? You know, your relationship with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was simply hired by Decca as a session musician, and so I had no idea what was coming as I went through the studio door. But it didn't take long, like 10 minutes, and I realised that. I was in the presence of somebody really good, Davy Graham, and we got on very well, and I thoroughly enjoyed making that album, Folk Blues and Beyond, and the next one, Midnight Man.
No, it's brilliant. I mean, the way. I mean, he's a seminal guitarist, and lots of people learnt of his style. You know, Jimmy Page and everybody says that he's the man, when it comes to open tuning and all this.
Yeah, that's right.
He wrote the book on it all, and it's just brilliant to hear you playing with him, and this acoustic guitar and double bass just sounds great together, and without hardly anything, it's just really.
Well, there's also drums on it, and there's Barry Morgan.
Yeah, I know the drums are great, but I mean, I there's a couple of tracks I listened to was just bass and guitar. I don't know, maybe I was listening to the wrong bits, but what a great record to be involved, and presumably he didn't really get the plaudits that he deserved for such a groundbreaking record.
No, I guess it was, well, as you say, it was somewhat groundbreaking, and people probably didn't know what to make of it to start with.
Yeah, because it was it was quite virtuous. I mean, he was a virtuoso guitarist, and he was playing an acoustic guitar, and he was mixing this jazz and blues and folk together.
Exactly. That's why I latched onto him. He had such a wide and also, I mean, he spent time travelling in the Near East and Far East. And he'd absorbed a lot of those scales. Marjun, A Taste of Tangier. That's one of the tracks with Middle Eastern tuning.
Going back to a little bit of a Middle Eastern, I love the version of Nights in Tunisia on Pendulum. I think that's a great version of it. And
yeah, that's entirely Dave's doing, that is.
Just great, you know, and you have this. So you've got this really brilliant. I mean, you're grounded in jazz, and then you're working. You've done a bit of blues. I mean, I suppose slumming it a bit with the blues, because when a bit of a jazzer, you think, oh, I'm going to play a bit of blues. It just, you know, you were a bit of a snob. Yeah. You know, you had to pick up the electric bass, but that's been good for you. I mean, you were a producer before you were a musician. It's just quite stunning. You know, you've done everything.
Well, not everything.
And then he played with Sandy Denny, John Martin. John Martin, I met him a few times. He could be a bit difficult.
Yeah, those were contemporaries of mine at the time, and yeah, you know, we played on each other's records and things. Great time.
Did you ever record in the Island Studios in St Peter's Square in West London? That's a nice studio.
Yeah, I think that's where I did John Martin. Bless the weather.
So then you've got this really big pop record in the middle of all this jazz stuff. You've got the Chris de Burgh record, which is Spaceman Came Travelling. That's a great record. What?
Yeah, I know. That is a bit off the wall as well, isn't it? Yeah. Once again, I was simply hired as a musician, a session musician. And I played on about half of that album. Chris Lawrence did the rest of it. And... I think, as far as I can remember, I think I probably got the gig because Chris Lawrence couldn't do it, or could only do part of it. And it just so happened that one of the tracks I played on was this Spaceman Goes Travelling, or whatever it's called. And yeah, that I have to say brings me a little present every Christmas time in royalties.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful. I mean, it's great when you get something like that really, you know, keeps coming back and saying thank you.
Yes.
And then, but of course, I can't really talk about Tony Reeves without talking about Colosseum and Greenslade. I mean, that was a big thing. I mean, the Valentine Suite and Theme from an Imaginary Western and of course your old mate Dave Greenslade. I mean, you made loads of records with both those outfits.
I mean, the Colosseum thing was the result of John finally. I think he stayed on with John Mayall for about 3 or 4 months or something like that. And then I don't know quite what happened, but anyway, they parted ways. And he approached me and said, "Do you fancy putting a band together?" And when the keyboard position came up, so to speak, I said, "Well, you know, what about Dave?" And that's kind of how the core of Colosseum got together, with the obvious immediate adjunct as well of Dick Hextall-Smith from the John Mayall days.
Wow. But that's definitely putting the band back together, and that's the boys from the Church Hall, isn't it? It's back together again.
Well, yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow. So
exactly that.
That's the thing about musicians, is once you work with them once, you know their ways, and you want to work with them again, and you're comfortable with them again, and you know that's kind of, it's nice. And I mean, the Colosseum stuff came out at the right time. It sold a lot of records, and yeah. I'm sure that you got to travel all around the world with them, did you not?
Well, not all round, but certainly through some of it. We did go to the States, which was really nice, and constantly around Europe.
Yeah, big in Germany, I believe.
Germany was one of the best markets, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like... I like working in Germany. They usually feed you.
Yes, with some heavy German food.
Oh yeah, it's great. And so
Well,
it's just
Scandinavia as well. Well, particularly Denmark. That was another country that we went to time and time again.
And then in Denmark, you got to record a band called the Burning Red Ivanhoe, I believe. Did you put on your producer hat again and were they Danish?
Okay, yes, they were Danish, but that isn't quite accurate. The Burning Red Ivanhoe thing was recorded in England, can't remember which studio, and originally John Peel was producing them, and I was literally dropping in on into the studio. I can't remember why now, and ended up he asked me if I'd sort of join him and co-produce. So that's how I got involved with Burning Red Ivanhoe. But the other Danish band that I did was Day of Phoenix.
Wow!
And that was done in Denmark. The studio, in fact, was quite unusual. It was a cinema. It was a big cinema with a big stage, and during the day, of course, when films were not being shown, you could record in there using that incredible space. Because there was a studio off to one side, the control room and desk and everything, and that's how we did that album. Wide Open Anyway was done on a cinema stage.
Wonderful, nice big a lot of acoustics, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I guess. But
yeah, but then the engineer there, Rosenberg, I think his name was. He was obviously very used to controlling and getting the best out of the acoustics.
Wow, working with John Peel was a wonderful guy for our band. He really championed us, and I got to go on his show one time in the middle of the night. I met his producer in a pub in Maid of Vale, and he said to me, "Oh, I'm going up to the BBC. Would you like to come? Have you got a record you need to plug?" And I said, "Yeah." And we jumped in a cab and we drove to the West End, and there he was in his studio, playing all these great records in the middle of the night. He was a bit like the Wizard of Oz. You expected this colossus, and he was quite a shy, mild-mannered man.
Yeah, right. Oh, yes. I mean, yeah, a true gent, as they say.
Yeah, really nice guy, and really important to our career anyway. He really helped the members out in early days. So then you've got Curved Air on your list. Curved, and were you in Curved Air with the guys from the Police, or the guy from the Police?
Yeah. Stuart Copeland on drums, yeah. It was the last incarnation of Curved Air at that time. And yeah, I auditioned for it, in fact. That's how I got the gig. I auditioned for it. And
do you remember what year it was?
No. 1976 springs to mind, but I don't know.
I did a support show for Curved Air in the Royal Holloway College. It might have been your support band. But possibly 76, maybe 75. But that's great. I mean, it's brilliant. And then I met you in the Constitution pub.
Yes, I remember it well.
In Camden, and it was a brilliant. I got invited by an actor called Jonathan or something, and said, "Come up and play at this jam." And
Jonathan Forbes.
Yeah, that's right. And he played the mandolin, and we were sort of doing a tribute to Davy Graham kind of night, I believe.
Yeah, well, the pub was Davy Graham's local.
And we got together with Joe Woolley, and this is where we started playing together. And I mean, it's been just fantastic over the years. We've managed to keep a little unit together, you and I, and that's why I'm so excited about this record, because it's.
Yeah, I've been very pleased to be doing those gigs with you from time to time.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, the thing about it is that I don't know how we've been playing together for 10 years, on and off. Just through thick and thin, through the pandemic, through some we managed to stick together, and now we've made this great record. I'm really looking forward to getting it released and getting a bit of love for our collaboration, because we've got Nick Cash.
That would be really nice.
We've got Nick Cash. We've got John Perry. It would be great to do some gigs.
Excellent players.
Yeah, and the thing is that you are a bit of a legend in the music business, and it'd be nice for people to know what your journey. I think your journey is a really exciting journey, and especially doing all that music production, and you learned the old way, and I often feel that the people that learnt the old way have got better ears.
Yes, I think that's true, because you didn't have so many screens to look at to tell you what was right and what was wrong. You had to make your mind up using your own pair of ears.
Yeah, and also making records on 4-track and 8-track machines is more challenging, but sometimes much more satisfying, because you don't have to mess about with it for months on end. It's either good or it isn't good.
Yes, you have to commit. That's the key word, I think. You've only got 4 tracks or 8 tracks or whatever, so you can't do 16, or you can't do 32 takes of a guitar part or something. So it hones the mind, sharpens the mind, and stops you rambling. I think you concentrate on getting it done.
There was a lot of bouncing. I mean, in the old days, you go into a 4-track, do 4 tracks and bounce it onto 2, and then do another 2, and some great records were made like that.
But you can only do that so far. You still have, every time you make a bounce, you've still got to commit to that particular balance of the things that you're bouncing that you can't undo.
And it makes great records.
Yes, I think it does.
But also, it's now or never. There's no undo button or go back. I'm really excited about the record, and we've done some great videos for it. And
yes, I've seen the videos. You're doing really well there. That's another talent of yours that you should exploit.
Well, Tony, the thing about it is that it's not good enough just to be a musician. You really have to.
You've got to do a bit more these days, I guess. Yeah.
You really got to work hard to get your music out there, and I'm really excited about our record and our work together. And it's just great to have a talk with you, because I've never really talk about all these different brilliant things you've done. Is there anything you'd like to talk about or mention from your career before I wrap this all up?
No, I think you've covered it reasonably well. The only thing maybe to say is on the Mike Taylor thing, I've been going through the tapes in my studio. There's loads of tapes all over the place. Before I get too old to listen to them, and that one tape that I found was a recording of a rehearsal we did with the Mike Taylor Quartet 2 or 3 weeks before going into Lansdowne studio and recording Pendulum. And this now has come out as an album by itself, with a really good insert too, a very comprehensive insert. And it's called Preparation, because it was preparing us for making the album Pendulum.
What was the album called? What's the new album called?
It's called Preparation.
How would somebody go out and buy it? We'll fill all that in later.
Yeah.
One of the funnest things I did with you is when we I made the film The Goldborn Variations, and we did a live show for Portobello Film Festival.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
We got a 12-piece band, and we played along with a piece of movie. It was a huge show for us. There was quite an amazing night. I think we had about 12 people, and we kind of jammed through the Goldborn Variations, which is one of our little songs that we play, and it was just a great night. And I got an award for it. I got a special film award for it.
You got an award for it? Oh, I didn't know that. Great, well done.
Yeah, they gave me an award for it. But our new version, I'm just finishing off on, sounds absolutely fantastic, and that's going to be on the album with a kind of strange mixture of songs, but a really nice album altogether, and it's just a pleasure to play with you, Tony, and to hear your stories, but to hear double bass, even better.
Oh, you're too kind, JC. Thank you very much indeed.